To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to heal, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. Today, we're going to be talking about how you have a purpose. There's a reason you're here. There's people you need to help. We want to be able to help you get through the darkness and find that light here on 8 Rice Up. Hey, welcome back to our podcast. So excited that you're here. I'm your host, Ryan Rice, and this is my beautiful wife, Maida.
Hello, welcome back.
So today we're going to be talking about how everything has a purpose. I know with the world and how crazy it can be sometimes, it feels like there's no reason things happened, right? I know when my spouse passed away, when my wife died, I thought there can't be any reason this happened. Like there's no good that comes from my wife passing away, right? I mean, how did you feel?
I felt horrible. Obviously, I had no idea why things were happening. And something I struggled with is why me?
Right.
I kept asking myself that, why me? Why this is happening? What am I going to do next? What is the purpose of having my babies and then having my husband die right after I was able to complete my family?
Yeah. So that's what we want to talk about today is there a purpose? And it's interesting with the purpose of life, you move forward with faith, right? Or you move forward not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but you move forward just with that gut feeling that, hey, this is right. This is what I want to do. But only in retrospect, when you're looking back, does it actually make sense? You're like, oh, that's why I did that, right? And that happens to us a lot, especially, now that we found each other, now that we're married, we look back and we're like, oh, we can kind of see the steps we took to get here. But along the way, it made absolutely no sense.
Right. And that brings me to ask you. So you told me 3 years ago, nothing made sense.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that. You're telling me before we started recording, you said, you know what, honey, 3 years ago, I changed careers and I didn't know why. But if you ask me today why, I know the answer.
Yeah.
So tell me what happened 3 years ago.
Absolutely. So I used to be an engineer. I was a chemical engineer for about 9 years. And I did that for a long time, got my bachelor's and master's degree in it, liked what I did, but it wasn't what I wanted to do forever, right? And so one day I was sitting in front of my work in my car, kind of contemplating where I want to be in the next 5-10 years. And I looked at the building and I said, this isn't it. This is not going to get me where I want to go, right? I didn't know exactly where I wanted to be, but that's not it. So I quit my job and I actually went and I worked for a friend doing sales. Now my friend, he told me, he's like, Ryan, you're an engineer. You're terrible with people. You're not a salesman, right? That's what he told me. He's like, you're not a salesman. You're an engineer. And I was like, you know what? F you. Like, I was really pissed about it. I was really mad about it. I love this guy to death, but I'm like, don't you tell me what I can and can't do. 100%. I can do whatever I want. Right. So he said, you can't do sales. And I said, I'll show you I can do sales. So I did. I joined a sales team. And I actually did. I did really well that first year. I absolutely killed it. And I think I hold the record for most money made in a year, for somebody at that level. But it made no sense why I did sales, having no experience, no previous knowledge of how to do sales, and especially being an engineer, terrible with people. Engineers are typically very awkward people that are always in their head. They're not good with interpersonal skills. And so looking back now, I see that as I was in that position, I was able to talk to people. I was able to get their story and communicate. And I was working on my ability to convey an idea effectively with other people, right? And honestly, if I wouldn't have joined the sales team, and if I wouldn't have put myself out there and been open to a new experience like that, I definitely wouldn't be doing this podcast right now.
Right. Now, working at that job, you told me you were able to learn a lot of things as well that helped you with your self improvement. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when Asia died, I was obviously in a dark place, right? Like I hit this point where just nothing made sense, and I'm like, I don't even want to get up in the morning because there's no purpose. Everybody dies, so if we all die, why work hard and why move and why do all these things that take so much energy and effort if we're just going to die, right? What was going on at the time was I was working with my buddy, and he's huge on self improvement and mental health. And so I had these daily routines, like I would take a cold shower every day because I hated it. That's it. That was the whole reason. I was training myself to do something I didn't like. And so I would take an ice cold shower in Utah, and it's freezing, like the water hits you and it hurts. I did that every morning without fail for over a year before my wife died because I wanted to train myself to do difficult things when I didn't want to do them. And so getting up in the morning when Asia died was super hard, but I'd already practiced it. I trained myself to get up and do it, and if nothing else, I can force myself to go through the motions. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't want to be here, but I'm going to fake my way through it. I'm going to show up. And I think 90% of life is just showing up. So that's
Right.
how I showed up.
Now, it sounds like if you would have been doing your engineering job that you were doing before you started working for your friend, and Aisha would have passed away while you were at that company, how would have you taken things?
So looking back, if I was still working as an engineer when Asia died, I would have quit my job. I would have sold my house. I would have bummed off of somebody, and I probably would not move forward. I would just be stuck like an eternity of darkness. I don't know what would happen with my kids because they need to go to school and stuff, but I would 100% lose all motivation because working as an engineer, you're in your head all the time, right? In your head, you're dead, right? Your head is not designed to keep you happy. Your heart is. I was working and thinking and working and thinking. And what I did was I did troubleshooting. So I always thought, well, what's the worst case scenario? How do I fix this, right? Risk analysis. I did that with everything. It wouldn't shut off when I got home. And so when I came home, I'm always like, oh, worst case scenario, worst case scenario. And when you're looking for things like that, you manifest it. You create the worst case scenario. And so if I was still in that mindset of what's the worst case, and the worst case did happen when Asia died, it would be like, oh, yep, I knew it. I knew this was going to happen, right? And then it's just I wouldn't have had the support system I did to get through it. I wasn't working on myself. I wasn't doing any self improvement at all. It would have been pretty disastrous.
Right. And you worked with a lot of mindfulness. I remember when I met you, I felt like you were a lot stronger than I was. I mean, it's not like I feel like I am a strong woman. And a lot of people tell me, wow, you're so strong. I think I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I have no other choice. I am supposed to keep going. But I also believe that at that time, and no, I believe it now, don't get me wrong, that you are a lot stronger than I am. And you taught me a lot of things when we're dating. And one of those things where don't give up and you keep going. That helped me a lot to, instead of looking at the negative side of things, it was more like looking at the positive, and there was like a light at the end of the tunnel for me.
Right.
Right? Not everything was just pure darkness. Everything seemed like there was hope when I met you. And you taught me that. And I remember you bringing me to these events, and you wanted me to learn about mindfulness and you know, your cold showers, like when you invited me to swim in this cold lake that was freezing, and I didn't know it was freezing. I should have known. But you looked like you were enjoying it. And then you were like, woohoo. You looked like you were having fun. You looked like that water was like bathtub water. And it wasn't. It was how cold was that water?
Oh, it was snow runoff. It was freezing. It's not like Costa Rican water where it's like, oh, this is nice. It was freezing.
Right. And you were laughing. You were smiling through the whole thing. You were just, come on, are you going to jump? And I'm like, why do you look so happy doing that? So for me, I think you're very, very aware and very awake of everything that you do, very conscious. Everything you do it with a purpose. Everything you do it with a, intentional.
Mhm.
It's very intentional. Isn't that right?
Right. 100%. And I mean, one thing I really, really focused on was emotions are a tunnel. They're meant to be gotten through, right? You're meant to move through them, not get stuck in them. So if you're going through depression, if you're going through grief and you're depressed and you're sad or you're angry, it's a tunnel. You just got to go through it. You got to grit your teeth and move through it. And when you are going through it, go through it 100%. Feel everything. Be as mad as you need to be. Be as sad as you need to be. Hate the world. Hate God. Whatever you need to do it. Feel what you need to feel, and it's not wrong. It's okay to feel those feelings, but then you get through it. You don't get stuck in the tunnel. Problem is, a lot of people get stuck in that tunnel, and they don't let themselves experience what they need to experience. Life is supposed to teach us something. I feel like after we move out of this life, the only thing we take with us is ourselves, our brain, our mind, you know what I mean? Like the way we think and the knowledge we have. So this life is designed on purpose to help us grow and become better people. And the only way to do that is through struggle and through heartache. And it only happens when you go through it. If you get stuck and you're grieving, you're angry, you're going to be stuck there until you learn the lesson or get through the tunnel. Right. And so for me, I really, really wanted to get through that tunnel because that tunnel sucks. It's terrible. Right. You're sitting there in the darkness. Like I remember staring at the wall and my brain wouldn't even work. It would just, you zone out and you're just like, because you can't function. Your brain just doesn't make sense of the world around you, but you have to go through it. That's just part of grieving, part of being human.
And that is so hard to do though. Because in my case, it's so hard for me to go through that tunnel. There's many aspects of my grieving that scares me. Like one of them being the trauma I went through at the hospital. And you tell me you need to go through that tunnel. You need to remember it's okay to feel those emotions. And I don't want to feel those emotions again.
Right.
For me, driving and seeing the hospital where my husband died is so hard. And it is hard because I haven't healed from that. I haven't passed through that tunnel and I haven't allowed myself to feel those emotions. And that's something that I think you do really good, like you were saying. And so I am very grateful that you listened, to your guts, or you were able to make the decisions of changing your job and being basically growing to be a better, stronger person.
Right.
Because if you wouldn't have been able to do it. We probably wouldn't have met. And if we would have met, you probably would have been a very negative person.
100%. When I was an engineer, I was one of the most negative people you'll ever meet. I would answer the phone and say, "What?" in the most pissed off voice I can on purpose.
Now, it's not like everybody that's an engineer, it's like that.
No.
Because I have girlfriends that are engineers. let's just say that. And they're amazing. So I don't know who you were hanging out with that were making you like that now. But I do know that you told me that before you changed jobs, that you were that negative person that you just didn't even want to talk to anybody, right?
Nope. I went out of my way to avoid people. 100% I did. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to look at anybody. I was in my own little box and I was stuck and I liked it because it was safe.
Right.
Because my brain was happy.
And this job made you get out of your comfort zone.
Right.
Like 100% get out of your comfort zone.
Right.
You had to do a lot of calling and talk to people that you didn't even know and try to influence them in a way that they would buy something from you.
Right. So I'm very good at systems and I have this enormous ego and I think I can do anything I want.
You have a huge ego.
Yeah.
I just need to say that. Yeah. It's true.
But it's hard to say I can't do things because I can. I know I can. So when I wanted to do sales, first off, I hated sales, right? I actually really like sales now because I understand what it is. But when I started it, I mean, you listen to, oh, you're going to do sales. And it's like, ugh, sales. You're this slimy, sleazy sales guy. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to sell with integrity. And all selling is helping people buy. And I like helping people. right? I was an engineer because I like fixing problems and solving problems and making things better. That's all sales is I'm finding what your problem is and helping you decide how to fix it. I'm not fixing it for you. I'm helping you do that, right? And so now that we're here doing this podcast, I feel like, oh, now we have the ability to communicate with people and help them get through what they need. We're just helping people get through their problems. We're helping people. We're figuring out, hey, what do you need? How do I help you get there?
Right. And I believe that you are a lot better than I am at doing this thing. Something else that you need to mention is that you're really good at speaking and being on camera, because at your job, you were able to be in front of the camera a lot.
Right. So yeah, when I was an engineer, I really wanted to get into real estate, did it myself disastrously. I mean, I made money doing it, but it was so hard. It was so much work and it took so much effort. And when I met my friend, I got into real estate with him. He made it streamlined. It was so easy and just effortless. I was like, oh my gosh. So I did it over and over and over again. And I got a fairly large portfolio, no money out of my pocket. It was fantastic. But long story short, I did really, really well. And because of that, my friend put me on stage with him and said, hey, Ryan, I want you to tell your story, because you as an engineer should not be good with people. But the way I made a bunch of money in real estate was I connected people with houses. Like I didn't wholesale or anything. I connected people that wanted houses to people that could give them houses, right? It was all a people business. And I was like, oh, cool. And so my friend would put me on stage, and we've been doing that for about a year. And, now I can kind of communicate with people, and I'm like, oh, I'm comfortable on camera and I don't mind talking in big crowds. And that's all bringing us to this point where 100% we want to be able to communicate with people and not shut down and be like, what are they going to think about me?
Right. And I think because of that, and that decision that you took to move onto the next step and get out of your comfort zone, it's why you are who you are today. Right.
Right.
I believe that all the decisions that we make in life, it's what mark our paths in the future. And so, and it's true, right? Like it depends on all the decisions that we make and all the choices that there are around us. It depends on those choices that you make, where you're going to be in the future. And this is where we are. And you were telling me it didn't make any sense at the beginning. You were like very hesitant of like, why am I doing this? Oh, I'm just learning to talk to people. But no, it wasn't just that. It wasn't just about selling. It was I can't even talk. See, this is what I'm saying. He's a lot better than I am. It was about growing up, and you did a lot of growing.
Right.
And so I am very grateful that you did that. But then on top of that, all that growing that you did, you were able to love your wife in a way that you didn't love her maybe at the beginning of your relationship.
Right. Yeah. Because a big part of self-improvement is you can't love people, really genuinely love someone, unless you love yourself, right? Everybody out here is just a reflection of what's on the inside of you. And so you can't love somebody if you can't look in the mirror and love yourself, right? And so what I did was I really, really focused on, I need to love myself. I need to care about who I am, and I want to be, this person. I want to look in the mirror and be proud of who I am. And so I did a lot of mental work to get to that point. And honestly, I'm very happy with who I am. It's a journey we're on, but I like looking in the mirror and I'm like, wow, you're amazing. If I wouldn't have done those things, if I wouldn't have done self-improvement, when Asia died, I would be a wreck, because I wouldn't know who I am. And then when your spouse dies, you die, right? It's so hard to move forward and keep going when there's nothing to look forward to, and you don't believe in yourself and you don't know who you are or really why you're doing this.
Right. And I honestly believe that in my case, I regret a lot of things that were not said. I regret not saying a lot of things to my husband. before he died. And it was because I was very self conscious. I'm still working on not being self conscious. But I didn't say a lot of things that you had the opportunity to tell your wife because you were able to grow as a person, and all that mindfulness that you did and all those exercises that you did to be a better person, to love yourself, to love others. You were able to connect with her even more that year that she passed away. For example, you said that you believed or you felt the need of buying her a Christmas present and giving it to her early, right? So you were trying to spend more time with her or to understand her, to be able to see and understand her different perspectives on life. And you were trying to be a better husband.
Right. Yep. I remember very clearly. I went Christmas shopping in early November. Right. I thought I'll get it done early. Then I won't have to worry. I bought a bunch of Christmas presents, had them come, Amazon, whatever. And I put them in a closet, and I had the impression, I was like, you should just give it to her. Right. And I thought, Ryan, you're just not being patient. And I said, no, why wait? Just give it to her. And so it was a couple of things she really, really wanted. She wanted a planner and things, and she wanted to make some big goals and have them written down. And so I wrapped them up, gave them to her, and I gave them to her maybe a week after they came. And I said, hey, Merry Christmas. And she's like, honey, it's not Christmas. I said, yeah, but it's okay.
Like, what does it matter, right?
Yeah.
And you were telling me that you're like, I wasn't able to wait. Like, at that moment, you were regretting that you gave it to her because it wasn't Christmas.
It didn't make sense.
And it didn't make sense in your head. But then she died how many weeks after you gave her that present?
2 weeks. She died 2 weeks later. Yeah, she died the day before Thanksgiving. So, and if I would have waited, I would have had all these Christmas presents and been like, oh yeah, there's another reminder. Right? Which triggers the depression, triggers the sadness. And you're just like. Oof.
And I just love that about you, that when you make a decision, you just do it. You make it happen. You don't look back. So you felt the need of giving her the presents early. You didn't know why. You didn't know what the purpose of it was. But now you understand why.
Yeah. Yep. Now it makes sense. And what was nice too is, so we went Christmas shopping and she bought a bunch of stuff, right? Thinking, hey, we're going to do it early. And then when she died, I didn't go Christmas shopping. That was the last thing on my mind.
You hate Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
In fact, it's really hard for you to give presents on Christmas. You're like, get your own presents, right? But that's another story.
Here's a gift card. Get out of here. Cash. No, yeah, but so what happened was Asia bought presents and then she passed away, right, Thanksgiving. And then Christmas rolls around and I thought, oh crap, I have nothing to give my kids. I didn't think about it, right? And some friends and neighbors were pitching in. They gave my kids a really, really nice Christmas. Everybody was really happy and they got so much stuff. But then Asia's parents had taken the presents that she bought. When we cleared out the house, they took the presents and put them in the closet and wrapped them and stuff. And they brought them over on Christmas and said, hey, these are from your mom. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had completely forgotten about it. But it hit me and I was like, oh, even though she's gone, she's still looking out for the kids. She's still looking out for me. And that was a big deal because it didn't make sense at the beginning, but it was nice to know that she was still thinking of us even after the fact.
Right. I love that story because it tells us, right? At least it tells me that there is a reason why we do things. There's always a purpose why you do things. And sometimes we may not understand it, but there is one. And I believe that there is a perfect plan for all of us written by God. And I don't know if you're watching us, if you're a religious person or you're not, but I believe that there is a perfect plan, and everything that you do in this earth, it was because we were predestined to do it. And when we're doing it, we may ask why. Like, why? This is so stupid. Why am I going through this? This doesn't make sense. I hate my life. I don't like this. Why do I even have to go through this? Like, what did I do wrong? Right? Those are questions that we ask ourselves.
Right.
And but then we look back and there's so many tender mercies.
Right.
Right? Like that Christmas one.
Yep.
That you're like, oh, that makes sense now. And I was feeling bad for not waiting until Christmas and giving it to her.
Right. Or I know there was one with you where when Tyler died, you were pregnant and you thought, how could this happen to me? Why would God take my husband while I'm pregnant? Like, how does that make any sense? But if you weren't pregnant, I don't think you'd be here.
No, I don't think I would be either. I did not want to eat, like I said before, and I probably would have died of starvation, or I would have done it, right? Like
I think you would have taken the pills.
I would have taken the pills. And so, yeah, the only reason why I kept going, and I actually called my son Ty, in short for Tyler, because that's what my husband liked to be called. And we were not able to choose a name, and there was one thing that also made me sad. But long story short, if I wouldn't have had Ty, if I wouldn't have been pregnant with Ty, I wouldn't have cared about myself. And he was the only reason that I was eating enough, that I lived, that I was able to, be there for my other kids, that I was able to keep going in life, even though I broke my leg and I couldn't walk for months. And I call him my strength. He definitely is my strength. He gave me that strength that I didn't have at that time, at those moments, especially at the funeral. Like, I kept holding my belly as a reminder, I'm okay. I gotta be okay for this baby. It's okay to feel what I was feeling, but I also didn't want to hurt my baby. I wanted to protect him, and I was grateful because for me, that baby meant like it was Tyler's last gift to me.
Right. Well, one other thing. So when you were pregnant, Tyler dies, and then you broke your leg. Yes. And it doesn't make any sense. You're like, hold on.
Oh my gosh. I was so angry at that.
Yeah.
I was actually angry at God for that.
Yeah.
I was angry that, one, I got pregnant and my husband died.
Right.
I was like, oh, my family is complete. And we both felt like he was complete. And then on top of that, I break my leg and I didn't have a husband to take care of me. I didn't have anybody to take me to the bathroom. I didn't have anybody to help me when you give birth. It's just a mess. And I didn't have that person, like my companion, to be there and help me. I had to depend on other people. And that's why I felt like a burden, right? And it was so embarrassing for me to ask for help, to go to the bathroom or to shower and just do all these things that you just don't feel comfortable doing it with another person that is not your husband. And so I was really angry that happened. But now, 3 years later, I understand that if my leg wouldn't have broken, or if I wouldn't have broken my leg, I probably would have done a lot of bad things because I was angry at the people that stole my company.
Right.
I was very tempted to just go to them and fight, maybe not fist fight, but I was so tempted to just go and arrange this thing face to face. And and it was a dangerous situation as well, because this person, he always carried a gun with him. Mm-hmm. And who knows what would have happened, because I'm a very, very emotional person. And so I felt like, and of course, I didn't think about this when I was going through it, but seeing it now and thinking about it, I feel like God allowed that to happen to say, hold on, Mayra, stay put. I'm going to protect you. And so for me, that was like God protecting me from doing other things
that
probably would have gotten me in trouble. And I probably would not, if I wouldn't have been dead, I would have probably been in jail. Not like I was going to do anything crazy like that, but I wanted to. I was angry that my husband died. I was angry that my business was being stolen, right? And you feel all those emotions.
Yep.
What else are you supposed to do? And as an angry pregnant woman, oh my gosh, you didn't want to see me mad, mad and grieving. So I'm like, God is like, okay, hold on. You're doing too much. You gotta stay in bed.
Yep. And while you're going through all of that, it's so easy to fall in that pit, right? To go into the despair and question everything and be mad at God and say, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? How come these terrible things are happening to me? I didn't do anything wrong, right? Like you could have been mad and we spent 10 years of infertility trying to get pregnant. We finally did. And you take my husband? How dare you? Right?
Right.
Or how could you break my leg? Like, don't you know I need to take care of my kid? I need to run this business. I need to be up and moving. And you're trying to impose your will and say, no, this is how it's supposed to be. And it's so easy to be mad and sit there and stay.
Right. And honestly, me breaking my leg was my number one reason that I stopped fighting for the business. And I think it was the best decision ever. Now that I understand how things worked out, I know that it was the best decision to stay away and focus on my kids.
Right.
And for you, I believe that you were also able to understand the why of things. You had many, 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 many plans with your wife, like building a house. You guys were going to build a house, right? Actually closer to where I was living. And you had plans of traveling and whatnot. And you're like, well, what's the purpose now?
Right.
Right. And that's when you were in your moments of darkness. You were questioning yourself, what is the purpose now? Why am I even going to live? I honestly, I don't know how you did it. I know I did it because I was pregnant. I'm going to be honest. Right there. I was pregnant and I had to take care of a life inside of me that I was not going to kill or damage. But you had your kids, but you also had the knowledge that you were practicing for maybe 2 years before she passed away, right?
Yeah.
Or so.
Yep. That I'm super stubborn. Be honest. No, yeah. When somebody tells me I can't do something, I do it. Right. So. And
you did it.
And I did it. And it's really hard to go through these things and feel all the emotions. Like I had my friend that was kind of coaching me through this whole thing. He said, you just need to feel the anger. And I said, I don't want to feel the anger. Why not? Just feel angry. And I'm like, I'm going to break something if I feel angry. You know what I mean? Or just feel sad. And I'm like, no. If you feel super sad, you get depressed, and depression leads to suicide. I'm not interested in that. Right. But you have to go through it. And that's the hard part. And that's the scary part is you're standing at the edge looking down and you're like, do I really want to go through this? Do I really want to feel all these emotions and live through this terrible, terrible mess? Like all this swirling, terrible
and you
stuff.
Start questioning yourself. Is it even worth it?
Yeah.
Is it worth it that I'm going through this? Am I going to see the light at the end of the tunnel? Is there even a light? Right?
Yeah.
And I think it all depends on how your mindset is at that moment. I was tested so badly on my character and the person that I am. And I remember who I was, right? When I snapped out of it and I'm like, this is not myself. And I stopped, put the pills down. My leg broke. So it was time. I'm like, well, it's time to be humble and just let it go and just let it be and leave it in God's hands. And I think it's very important when you're in those moments to recognize why things are happening to you. What can you learn from what you're going through? Is there anything you can learn from it? I learned patience. I learned to be strong. I learned that I wasn't alone. I learned to love people in a deeper way. I learned to empathize with others. I learned to, with infertility, I learned to understand how women feel when they lose a baby and the emotions they go through. And I'm able to help them with that. If I wouldn't have gone through infertility, I would have no idea how to help a lot of friends in my life that go through that. Many, many of them. And looking back, if I wouldn't have gone through breaking my leg, I always saw people with casts and I'm like, nah, that's not a big deal. I actually wanted to have a cast myself when I was in high school. I'm like, that kind of looks cool. Everybody signs it. No, it is a huge deal. It actually does hurt. It hurts a lot. I don't wish on anybody to break a bone in their body. So I'm grateful for those things. I'm grateful that there was a path marked for me, and that because of the decisions that I made, I was able to get out of it or keep going and moving forward. And here I am.
Right.
Right. And I'm stronger than ever. I did not give up. Giving up on my business doesn't mean that I gave up on other stuff and other goals that I have. It just meant that I was humble enough to say, okay, God, just lead me on. And I was humble enough to trust them and say, here I am. What do you want me to do? How can you use me now that I've gone through everything that I've gone through?
Right. And as some tips for people that are going through it, if you're struggling with something, if you're grieving, just grieve, right? And again, nobody can tell you how to grieve. All I can say is feel what you need to feel. Go through what you need to go through, right? Emotions are a tunnel. You just need to get through them. It's hard. It sucks. You got to do it. You just got to do it. That's the only way to get through it. You can't get stuck in the tunnel.
And know that there's a purpose. Recognize that there's a purpose why you're going through it.
Right. Have patience.
There's definitely something better waiting for you.
Right.
Just be patient. Go through the emotions like Ryan says, because there's something bigger coming for you.
Right. Every time you get knocked down, you get back up. And there's something better when you get back up. Every time. Every single time. And the harder you get knocked down, the harder you have to get back up. Like, you just force yourself to do it. It's worth it. I promise it is. You just got to trust and believe that something's better on the other side. Even sometimes you're in you're in the trenches and you got to take one more step. That's all you can do is one more step. Just take the step. One more step at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. I know when Asia died, I had all these plans and I'm like, oh, I'm thinking in decades. I want to be here in a decade. And then when suddenly she died, I could think maybe a day in advance. That's it. A day in advance. I couldn't think a week, couldn't think a month, couldn't think a year. They're like, oh, what are your goals for this year? I don't know. But I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. Or maybe I know what I'm going to do in an hour. Just take it step by step and know that as you keep going, things get better. And then finally, the power of questions, right? When you're in these moments where you're just surrounded by darkness and it's hard and it's a struggle, be careful with the questions you ask, right? Because you always get answers to your questions. But if you say, why me? How could this happen? How dare you? Things like that, it's not going to make sense, right? Those aren't helpful questions in the moment, right? They come out of anger, resentment. It's okay to go through that, but don't get hung up on those questions. The better question is always, what am I learning through this, right? Because again, if you're going through something difficult and you don't understand why, ask, what am I learning? Because if you don't learn the lesson, you're destined to repeat it. And you're going to get stuck until you learn the lesson, right? So I know when Asia died, I definitely didn't want to repeat that. So I wanted to learn the lesson the first time. And I'm like, what am I learning? And then one question that's powerful, I love this question, who can I serve, right? If I went through this, what's the purpose of me going through this? Who can I serve? Who can I help that's also going through this? And I think you said that beautifully. You went through infertility for years, for about a decade, and it didn't make any sense. You're like, well, why me? Why am I? When you take it off of yourself and take a selfless view and look at other people, you say, who can I serve? There's a lot of people with infertility. There's a lot of people that struggle getting pregnant. There's a lot of people with problems that now you have the capacity to help. Whereas before, you had no idea.
No, and you have no idea what to say to others.
Right.
Just like people didn't know what to say to me when my husband died,
Right.
or when I had a miscarriage, or, and now I feel like I have that capacity. And I'm so grateful for that I have the words. And I know words are not going to make you feel better. They're not going to make everything come back if you or make that person come back if you lost somebody, or have that baby come back to your belly if you've lost a baby. But I know what it feels like, and I know exactly how to move on from that. And it takes time. That's all I'm gonna say. And like you said, just be careful what you say to yourself, because you're listening to yourself. If you say I'm a mess, you're gonna act like you're a mess. If you say I'm not strong or I'm not able to have kids, you're not gonna believe that you're able to have kids one day. So be careful. Love yourself. Be careful with what you say to yourself, because you're listening. You're constantly listening. If you say that you're strong, and you will believe and you will act like you're strong. Say that you're worth it, and you will act like you're worth it. Believe that you are here for a purpose, and that God has a big purpose for you if you're religious. If not, just believe it. Believe that somebody needs you out there. That somebody needs to hear your story and what you're going through right now. You're not being left unseen or unheard of, right? Or is that how you say that?
Yep. You are seen. You are heard.
Right.
Yep. You matter.
You do matter. Just remember that. And one last thing that I wanted to say is that I promise you that whatever you may be going through right now, you're going to know the why or the purpose of why you're going through it. I promise you that day will come, and that you're going to be so grateful that you went through it. So keep holding on, keep being strong. And when I mean strong, accept the situation you're in and keep holding on. Because I know that it's not just about strength. It's about, I have no other choice but to do it, right? And so that doesn't mean that you're not strong just because you're just holding on. That just means that there's something better for you. There's a bigger thing coming for you. And this lesson, this thing that you're going through, is basically a lesson that's teaching you to be better and stronger and what is that word that I want to say? And more capable of doing it. If you're going through something really bad right now, this is gonna make you better able to do it. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Yep.
I don't know. The Spanish is really hard, guys. Yeah. The Spanish keeps coming back at me, but you're gonna be better at doing it for whatever is coming for you.
And definitely find a support group. Find friends, find a community, find someone that you can go through it with. If you're going through it alone, it's hard. It's very hard. And I get it. Sometimes you go through it alone, but don't hide it. Don't shy away from everybody. Don't pretend like everything's okay. If you're not okay, it's okay not to be okay. But tell somebody. Please let other people know, right? I know, and going back, because I'm a nerd, going back to engineering, if you have like a piece of wood and you're putting a weight on it to see how much it can hold, it'll hold a certain amount. If you put 2 pieces, it doesn't just hold double. It holds triple or 4 times what that one piece could. So together, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 can equal 15. It can equal 1,000. You need to find somebody in your world, in your sphere, that can help you. And if you don't have anybody like that, you need to find somebody. You need to get there. You need to go online. You need to meet other people. You need to find somebody that you can put in your life that can be that rock for you when you need them, right? And that's really our hope with doing this. We want to be able to help people because we've been there. We know how hard it is, and we want to be able to provide that support for people that feel like there isn't anybody else.
Yeah, and for me, it was really hard to let people help me. But seriously, let other people be a blessing in your life, and let yourself be a blessing in other people's lives, especially when you're going through those moments. That's something that's definitely going to help you as well to grow. where you're going through that transition of hell, because it's really hell that what grief is, right? It's such a roller coaster that the best thing that you can do is let others help you and let yourself help others.
Yeah. So, but that's what we want to leave you guys with. Hopefully that's valuable. Please find somebody that you can support, you can share with, and find somebody that you can lift up, right? But that's our podcast here on 8 Rice Up.
Yeah,
we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for watching, and we hope you find your purpose in life. We'll see you next time.